Well, hello everyone and welcome to this Journal with Witch review. So if you're not familiar, this is an anime. It's 13 episodes long and I watched on the 7th of May. And the premise of this anime is that it's basically, there's a girl called Asa and her parents die in a car crash. And then because of that, she goes and she starts living with her aunt Makio. And it's basically the whole story is following Asa and Makio as they kind of go, they live out the next year of their lives or so, something like that. This is a 4 out of 5. I like this quite a lot. There are certain things about it that make it not quite a 5 out of 5, but there was a lot that I liked about this, and I teared up at certain points. So, it is really good. This is an anime that I heard about initially through Reddit. When I was looking up, what do people think is the anime of the season of the beginning of this year? Would that be summer or something? No, it would be winter or something like that, right? And everyone on Reddit, almost everyone pretty much, was saying Journal with Witch, that's the one you have to watch. So that's what initially motivated me, and I can understand why. This definitely feels, it's good. It is very good, and I can imagine a lot of people liking this, but yeah. For very different reasons as well. But let's just get started. So I have a few overall thoughts. Firstly, it's a very mature show. Now, this is the first thing I actually ever heard about it, which is that when I looked up the reviews on Reddit, not the reviews, but what are the things people liking this season? And I saw a bunch of people say Journal with Witch. I saw that they would always say, oh, it's a very mature show. But I absolutely understand why, because that is how I would probably describe the show. The vibe of it is very mature. The kind of words I would use to describe this are quiet, gentle, and grounded, especially. Groundedness is going to be a big thing I'm going to talk about. But a lot of this show takes place basically in an apartment with, 2 or 3 characters in a single scene. There's never many more than that. It is mostly focused on the 2 characters, Asa and Makio, but there are a lot of other relationships in the show that we're going to talk about. But yeah, it is a very kind of quiet, gentle, grounded kind of show. Which is very mature, which is interesting. I don't watch many shows like this, or many anime like this specifically. So, I liked it. Now, the main thing I want to talk about in this anime is the main cool thing that I think is what the anime does the best, which is the portrayal of people and relationships. I think this is the main kind of appeal of this anime, and there's kind of multiple regards to it. The first thing is that it has a good way of portraying the idea that one person can be multiple people from other people's perspectives. What I mean by that is that there's, for instance, Makio, and the Makio that exists, that we see, is different, as the viewer, who sees different aspects of her, is different to the version of Makio that Asa sees, the girl she's looking after, right? Versus the person that Daigo, her friend from, from she was in school or whatever, the version that she knows of Makio, versus her ex-boyfriend, basically Makio, interacts slightly differently with all these people, and it's cool, it's interesting how one person can be many different people in the eyes of all these different people. So I think the show does a really good job of portraying that. Of all the relationships in the show though, I think my favorite is probably the way that Makio interacts with Daigo. So this is her friend. If you've seen the show and you don't remember, it's the blonde friend. I think it's basically the first friend we see in episode 2. And it's just so good. The two of them speak so quickly with each other, and they change topics so quickly, and they have a bunch of past events and past people that they know that they're just referring to, and Asa can't keep up because she has no idea what they're talking about, because obviously it just shows how deep and how long they've known each other for. And I like this. It's just really, really cool. And it kind of ties into the next kind of relationship element, which is that it's very cool seeing Asa's perspective of adults' conversations and relationships. I think this is really cool as well, where, I was just saying with the Daigo stuff, where it's they have this kind of quick way of talking with each other, where they know exactly what they're going to say before they say it, and they swap topics, and they're very naturally able to do that. There's that whole element to it. But then there's also the fact that because they're adults, they don't sweat the small stuff that Asa sweats, right? They speak really directly to each other without being worried about how they're going to be perceived or anything like that. This is all interesting stuff, and it is cool to see a 15-year-old in Asa witnessing these adult relationships, is the way that I think she puts it. But yeah, it's very, very cool. So I like that stuff too. Then I guess more on this, if I'm just going to talk about all the different relationships in the show. Asa's relationship with Emery, who is basically her childhood friend, the friend who's closest to her throughout the show for the most part, and is the friend that is basically from the beginning of the show all the way till the end, and it is very cool. There's small moments where I'm oh, this is super cute. This is a very authentic friend who really, really cares about her deeply, about Asa. There's a scene early on where she gets mad basically because Emery told her mother that her parents died in a car crash, and because of that, the mother basically told the school, or the school found out somehow, and it was a whole thing. I don't know how it ended up happening, but basically Asa blames Emery. And this is fine. This is good. I like this. I was very emotionally invested in all that. But I think the cutest thing to me in the relationship between like Emery and Asa is the text later that we see, which is when Emery is basically texting Asa trying to apologize. And she says that like, I'm going to make my mum apologize. And the teacher said he'll apologize. And it's like, oh, this is very cute. Like Emery is working in the background to kind of like try and make Asa feel better or try and mend the relationship, even though it's not really her fault. And she shouldn't have to feel this burden of like, oh, this is my fault that people found out. Because it's not really. Like she just told her mum. Like you can tell your mum things like this. And also she was probably hurting, not as much as Asa, but obviously she was very close with Asa's family as well. It's just interesting. I like all this. This is great. The relationships in the show are great. And then the second thing is like after this, like I think like an episode or so later, or maybe in this episode as well. But it's when Emery, not Emery, Jesus. Emery or Emily, I should just call her Emily. That's what they say at some points. But when she is basically when Asa calls her for the first time after they'd had that big fight where Asa had got mad at her about, leaking the information. And when Asa calls her, she like picks up instantly and she's like crying so much and so loudly, and it's just so cute. So I don't know. I like the Asa Emery relationship a lot. So that was really good. But I don't have too much to say beyond that, but it was great. But more generally, when it comes to relationships, I think the show also, like I said before, it does a really good job of conveying how you're like a single person can be multiple different people viewed from different people's perspectives, but it also does a really good job of showing how relationships change over time. Like it's not necessarily saying that like a relationship will degrade over time, or like say Asa and Emery's relationship was really strong at the start of the show, was really weak at the end or anything like that. What it does rather is that like the amount of time that we see Asa spend with certain characters changes as the time goes on. And the same applies to Makio as well. Like in the beginning of the show, it's Asa and Emily. Like these are the two characters and we're seeing them interact a lot. But by the time we get to the end of the show, there's so many other characters, and Emery and Asa's like time together on screen is like much reduced. And Emery has her own like kind of new relationships that have developed since she started high school and all that. And it doesn't mean that they're less friends, because all the moments they have together, they're just like they've always just been the same level of friends like throughout the whole show. But we just don't see as much of that relationship as time goes on, because that's what happens in life, like sometimes you'll have best friends that you'll spend literally every day with, and then you won't see them for a few months, and then you'll see them again, you're still best friends. I think the show does a really good job of portraying this. Yeah, so I think that's just like another element of relationships in the show that I think are really, really good. Yeah. And then my last thing I wanted to say about, I guess it's more about characters than relationships, is that I feel like Makio is a very, very relatable character to me. I feel like in all of anime that I've seen, she might be the most relatable, or like in some regards, but in other regards, she is very different to me. So it's very interesting. And for context, Makio is the aunt in this story, right? Now, firstly, that's great. I love when there's like a relatable character. Firstly, there's like I connect with the idea of her being completely fine, being completely alone. Like she just lives her life. She doesn't really need other people around. Like this is something that I can really relate to, where it's like day by day, I can get by with just being by myself, I love my friends. I love hanging out with people. Like this is the best thing ever. It is my favorite thing to do, is to just talk to people. But I'm perfectly fine going prolonged periods just without anyone. Like it doesn't bother me that I'm like, oh, I'm like lonely or anything like that. It doesn't really happen, And I feel like I very much feel like Makio in that regard. There's also the element of like, people will ask her a lot of questions, especially Asa, who's like this kid, who's asking big, important questions about life and all that. And a lot of the time, Makio just says like, oh, I don't know, like I haven't thought about that. Or maybe Asa will say like, oh, I feel this way. Like, how can you not experience this? Or like, I feel this way. Can you give me some advice? And then Makio would just be like, I don't really have an advice because I don't really feel like that. Like I don't have any experience like that. I've never really gone through that. And I feel like that's very relatable too. You don't really see characters who do that. Like a lot of just characters in stories will like try and give advice in those moments because they are like the adult in the relationship, right? But Makio doesn't do that. It's just very relatable. I kind of like that as well. There's like the fact that she like lives her life her own way, and she doesn't really care about how other people live their lives, and like they can live however they want. She lives how she wants. Like this is very relatable. And then there's like the very cute flashback scene where it's like Makio, like she's like a very stoic person, who doesn't really show too many emotions. Like most part, she does definitely have moments of showing emotions, and when she's with her friends, she very much exemplifies those emotions. But there's a scene where we flash back to her in high school, and she's alone, and she's received a letter from her friend Daigo, and the letter was basically like, oh, because of you, like my life is like worth living or something like that. And then we see her tearing up because of her friend who gave her this letter, and I'm like, oh, that's like so relatable too. Oh my goodness, we love getting cute letters and people saying that you matter to them and all. Oh my goodness. So in many regards, Makio is very relatable, so we like that. And then there's like other elements where she's like not really relatable at all, where it's like I personally have a much more generally upbeat or like energetic kind of disposition, I guess, which is very different to her. I have a much more optimistic view of people compared to her, and I think I also have much stronger stances on things. Like she is opinionated sometimes, but it's more like a lot of the time she kind of like takes the middle road, or like, oh, I don't really know that much, and I don't know. I feel like I have stronger stances on things, but she's very different to me also. But what can I say? Very relatable character, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, anyway, that's all I've got on relationships. Now, there's a few other broader notes I've got here. One is about dealing with death. So clearly, like, this is a show about a 15-year-old girl who loses her parents. It's about an aunt who loses her sister. It's about a mother who loses her daughter, but this element of the story didn't really stand out to me. Like, it is probably the whole point of the story. Like, there's probably is like a big element of like the thematic resolution or something like that, but I didn't really connect with this at all. The one thing that I would probably say is that the best part, or like the best element of this kind of portrayed in the show, and it's not really related to dealing with death, it's more just like death itself is like an interesting thing to explore, which is that there's a scene early on where Makio is like reflecting on when she was going and clearing out Asa's house, like after her parents died. And she talks about how there was like this towel that was hung up waiting to dry, or there were glasses left next to the bed, or there was a plant waiting to be watered. And it really like makes it feel like, it like really conveys the feeling well of like no one expected to die that day. Like sometimes people just go about their day and they die and they don't come back. They weren't planning on it. They had a towel hung up. They had their glasses like on the bed. Yeah, that was really affecting. So I like that. That was probably the best like whole element surrounding death was just in that portrayal there on that one scene. And the only other thing I basically have to say about dealing with death or like death itself is that I'm very glad that Makio didn't have a big moment of recontextualizing how she thought about her sister and crying and breaking down about the fact that she's dead or anything like that. Like for context, in this show, the whole point is that Makio basically, when her sister dies, she doesn't really care because she never liked her sister. Her relationship with her sister was beyond repair. And the whole show, you're kind of like waiting for this moment where it's like, oh, she starts to empathize more with her sister, or she kind of wishes her sister didn't die and now she's going to break down crying or anything like that. It never really happens. Now, there are moments very clearly throughout if you compare Makio at the beginning of the show and at the end of the show, she has come to terms like infinitely more with her sister and the relationship they had in the past than she did at the beginning of the show. Like there's definitely growth in that regard. But the moment of like her kind of arriving at that is scattered throughout the show, and it's like smaller scenes where it's like she's reflecting on her sister's words in the past, or she's learning about something about her sister from Asa, and maybe she'll tear up like once or twice. It's not like a big moment though, and I really, really like that. So that was really cool. But that's all I got about the death element, which is very funny because it's like the whole kind of focus of the show. Then I want to talk about my favorite scene, which is the scene that I cried the most. Like I actually cried quite a lot in this. It was a very good scene, which is the scene I got here on this image here, which is when Asa is singing the song in the band. Now, it is interesting because I don't have a strong reason for like, oh, like this resonates so deeply because blah, 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 whatever. Like it just got to me. Like there's a few elements. Firstly, it's like the coolest element of this scene is that Asa is singing the OP of the anime. I don't like really care about the lyrics, so I didn't really read the lyrics, but maybe the lyrics like inform whatever the story character stuff. I have no idea, but it is super cool that she's like singing the opening of the song of the anime. But regardless of that, it's just the cutest moment is when she's, how do I even say this? Like she's singing because she's like trying to figure out who she is, okay? And at the same time, she's singing because she like wants to make other people happy. Like she wants to make her friend who is struggling because of university. We'll talk about it when we get to the small scenes. But basically, she has a friend who's struggling with stuff. She wants to sing to like make her happy, and that's another element to it too. And this is very cute moment when I think it's like when the big crescendo in the music happens, and you're basically throughout this performance, you're seeing all of the different characters that we've seen throughout the show, like all the like high school characters that we've seen, who are all having their own struggles of their own. Like we got the guy, I think it was the guy. I hope I'm remembering correctly, because I would imagine this is the only person who could fit, but I think it's the guy who like quit the baseball team or whatever. I don't know if it was baseball, whatever, some sport team. You've got the girl who's like struggling with becoming a doctor. Like you have all these characters. You've got Emery who's recording her struggles of her own, and us is talking about how like she wants to make this a moment that like these people will remember in 10 years from now. And it is like very cute because it's like it very clearly is a moment these people will remember. It's just, oh my goodness, it's just so cute, where like all these people with their small stories who for them it is like their whole world, right? And this small moment with us singing that isn't really a big moment from their perspective. For us, it's like a massive moment. For them, it's just like oh, look at this, people are singing in the middle of the school. But it'll be something that sticks with them, and it's just super cute. I don't know how to explain it, but it was really good. And then after this performance, it really does feel like it is a really good way to end the show, because it does feel like that after this performance, Asa has a better grasp on who she is in this moment. Like it's not like she understands who she is forever, or like, oh, I'm going to be this type of person, or I'm going to do this in the future. But it's like in this moment, she likes singing. Like she likes making people happy. Like this is who she is. She feels more content with like her own identity, which is something she'd been struggling throughout the whole show. I like it. It's a really good way to end the show. So the band scene was definitely my favorite in the show. Then there's like a bunch of smaller scenes that I just want to talk about very briefly by just mentioning them basically. There's the scene where we basically get a few flashbacks with Makio's sister, or Asa's mother, the mother who died basically in the car crash. And we find out that she has a whole thing of like, she basically lived her life wanting to fit in with people. That was her whole thing. And it's like, there's a very bittersweet moment where it's like, she clearly accidentally got pregnant with Asa, and then well, not clearly, but she probably doesn't want to, like, she probably doesn't really want to marry this husband of hers. And the husband definitely didn't want to marry her. He made it explicit. But the fact that she does, regardless, like stay with him because it's like the normal thing to do, where it's like she wants to be in this nuclear family, or not nuclear, whatever, the like mother, father, like daughter family, like a couple basically, because like all her friends would think it's so weird if she like broke up from that relationship, you know? It's like, it's sad, but it's also like bittersweet, and it's just very cool. So I like this story a lot with her sister. But yeah. Then there's Emily and her implied like lesbian story, where very clearly it's like throughout this whole show they're hinting at, oh my god, like Emily, you don't want a boyfriend, do you? Why don't you want a boyfriend? Whatever. But it's just so cute. Like there's two moments that there's one moment I teared off at watching, and then there's another moment which is really good too. The moment I teared off is when Emily basically earlier in the show, Makio notices that Emily is kind of struggling with stuff, and she gives her a movie. She tells her basically, oh, you know, this movie is about someone who says that like regardless of what you are, like that's okay. Like you can be whoever you want to be, basically. And then we see a scene later. It's very brief. It's for like 3 seconds or something. And it's basically Emily watching the movie and like tearing up and seeing how it really, really got to her and affected her. And she kind of changes going forward after that. She like kind of, you know, has the relationship we see with this girl, and she's holding hands with her later, and it's super cute. So that was really good. But the reason this scene got to me so deeply, and I was like tearing up watching it, was that it's just like, something else that they say earlier on the show is that Makio is very worried because like the things that she says to this kid Asa, it's just a single thing that she could say, a very small thing that doesn't really matter much to her at all, to Makio. It might completely change Asa's life. Like kids can kind of like hang on things that you say, even if you don't think they're like important. Like they will just focus on it so much. And this is very clearly one of those moments where it's like, Makio didn't realize how deeply she was going to affect Emily's life by showing her this movie. It is just super cute. So yeah, then we have the storyline of the girl who wants to become a doctor, and the fact that like she finds out that there was this scandal in Japan where I think it was a university who was like admitting people to become doctors or whatever. They had been intentionally reducing admissions for women, basically. They'd been down weighting their scores in like exams and stuff, so they would have less women doctors. And she gets like very frustrated about this, and she doesn't go to school anymore, and it's very sad, and I like that. And there's the whole element of like, there's clearly a guy at school who does like her, has a crush on her, basically, I'm guessing, or it's just like who loves her in like a very friendship kind of way. But when she comes back to school, and he's like very like happy that she's there, but also like very upset about the whole doctor thing, like the university admission thing, and he's like trying to comfort her, and it's just super cute. So that was really good. And the fact that like in the band scene, like she is moved by Asa's song, and she makes like a Mad Max reference, which I didn't realize was a Mad Max reference until afterward, because I went to the Reddit and I was like, I wanted to see like what people thought about that final band scene, and people were talking about that. I was like, oh, that's like very cute, because they referenced Mad Max early on. But also kind of crazy, but the Darwin incident also made a Mad Max reference. So that's like 2 anime in 2026 that happen to have Mad Max references, but whatever, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, this storyline was really cute too, with the doctor girl. Then we also have the very cute small interaction early in the story, which is the interaction between Makio and the lawyer guy, where you have initially this basically Makio takes over Asa as a guardian, and a lawyer comes in, and you're worried when he comes in, because you're like, oh no, a lawyer is gonna be crazy. Like, what if he like removes Makio's custody of us or something like that? We don't want that. And then he gets like, when he basically meets her for the first time, he sits down, he's like very lawyer-like, and he basically feels like a concept, right? Like the concept of a lawyer, like what you see in a story where it's like, oh, like we've got Makio and Asa, these are characters that we follow. Then we have the lawyer guy who's coming in, and he's gonna like be a thorn in Makio's side, and he's gonna cite all these formalities she needs to follow. And that's basically what he does. He's very initially like aggressive in a very automatic way, where it's like he's kind of like saying things and he's not really emoting much or whatever, and it's like he's not really even listening to Makio or paying much attention to her, he's just going through the motions or whatever, until he realizes that his assumptions about Makio were wrong, when she like has a moment of like freaking out in front of him or whatever, and he like recontextualizes everything before that, where he kind of realizes that, oh, she wasn't really dodging my call, she's literally like just too overwhelmed with everything that's happening, and blah 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 blah, whatever. He basically has a whole recontextualization, and then after this he changes his demeanor entirely, and he goes from being this like concept of a lawyer to being an actual character in the story, and it's really cool. So I like that kind of small scene or small element of the story, so that was really good too. And then The last one is something that also happens somewhat early on, which is that when Makio goes to the cafe with her ex-boyfriend for the first time, he has this very cute confession scene where it's like, he tells her that when he learned that she had a kid now in Asa, he got upset because she always used to tell him that she didn't want kids. And it's like a very cute, real moment of like this guy who, it's like a small thing. He didn't have to tell her, but he felt like telling her. And I don't know how to say beyond just like, man, it felt so grounded and cute. So we like that. There's a lot of small stories in the show that I like a lot, but that's all of them. Now, there's a few other bigger things to say, I think, which is the symbolic visuals is one thing to talk about that the show does, which is that basically you have scenes where, say, Asa will be walking in school or something like that, or she'll be like watching two people do something, but the visuals we see, like the literal visuals of her at school, that's what we would probably want to see, right? Like the actual stuff going on in her life. But when she's doing certain things, we see abstract visuals, or like, what's a better way to say it? Like symbolic visuals, I guess, like I said, where, for instance, it was like, if like Asa was kind of waiting for Makio to make her a tea or something like that, and what we see when she's doing that in the apartment is like an outdoor tea shop, and Makio's in the tea shop and Asa's like waiting outside or something like that. Now, this is like a thing the show does, and I'm not quite sure like what it's just like a quirk of the story, I think. Like this is a way of showing that Asa is kind of coping with things by, I think it's like tied into the whole diary element and how she's like, how Makio was a storyteller. It's like a whole, I don't really care that much. Basically, the conclusion here is that this is an element of the anime. I don't know if it'll be in the manga, it probably is, I'm guessing. But it's an element of the anime that, I didn't really not like it. Like there was no moment where I was like, oh, why are we doing this? This is terrible. But there was no real moment that I liked it either. It was very, very neutral on this. And it is a decent like part of the show. Like it is like a significant chunk of the show is this stuff happening. But yeah, so I don't have anything strong to say. I just wanted to point out that like it wasn't really a good thing. It wasn't really a bad thing. I was completely neutral on it. But I could imagine a lot of people either love it or hating this, but probably mostly loving it, I would guess. But not for me. Then my final, I have two more things. My first thing to say is that, like, I've said a lot of things I like about the show, but it isn't quite a 5 out of 5, and I have 3 things that are kind of reasons why. One of them is that it can be a bit too philosophical, or philosophical-esque, kind of, like in a similar way to Orb, kind of, where Orb on Movements of the Earth is a very, like, philosophical kind of show, where characters embody philosophies. This is like that to a lesser extent, but the elements here are not really too interesting to me, or sometimes they can be interesting, where Makio was saying something about, like, what humans are like, or, like, what people are like. That can be interesting, or what loneliness feels like to her. It doesn't really land for me a lot of the time, and sometimes I can just be confused, where I'm like, I'm not really sure what the point is, or like maybe it's like a translation issue from Japanese to English, and like I don't know. And a lot of the times, probably just me just not paying enough attention, or like just it going over my head or something like that. But I don't know, this kind of stuff went over my head, so it's not quite a 5 out of 5. There was a whole bit concerning the word curse, where there was a whole episode where Asa was really focused on the word curse for some reason. I couldn't figure it out why. That went completely over my head. I don't know. That was a bit weird. And then also just toward the end of the show, it got a bit more confusing, where there were more flashbacks that were like playing around with chronology, where certain scenes were taking place before others, and we were flashing back between the present and the past, and different characters were spending different time, like more time with each other, and I just found it more confusing. Now, this is probably less of an issue if you're watching like week to week, but I was binging this pretty quickly, and I don't know, to me it was just confusing. So yeah, but it's not quite a 5 out of 5, but it is really, really good. And there is a chance that one day if I watch this again, I will like it more when I'm able to follow the characters better, and there'll be more moments at the beginning that will land with me more emotionally, I think, now that I know Asa and Makio specifically. But yeah. Then the final thing to say is about the production, okay? So firstly, this is like, it's an anime where there is good animation, but it's like not really, like it's more so the art and the directing is probably the highlight. Nothing too special where I was like, oh, that was amazing or anything like that, but it was consistently good. Like it never took me out of it once where I was like, oh, that looked really bad. Not a single time did anything like that happen. It's perfectly fine, perfectly good, I would say. Like good is probably the best way to describe the visual quality of looking at it. The number one standout by far, though, and if you know anything about me, it's very obvious, but it's the music. The music is fantastic. Obviously made by the great Kensuke Ushiro, my favorite anime composer. Made Chainsaw Man, Orb, On the Movements of the Earth, Words Bubble Up Like Soda Pop, Heavenly Delusion, like all these things. And it's just great. I don't know what to say beyond it. It's just great. And certain moments use it really well. Like there was one moment leading up to Asa singing, like in the band, where you see her like holding her parents' hands and they're like walking into the ocean or whatever. The music there is just so good. There's like so many really, really good moments like that. But yeah, it's also like very recognizably Kensuke Ushio. Like you can tell it's him. It's like a similar vibe to his other stuff. But it's also like, it feels like a mix of kind of like the Orb on the Movements of the Earth vibe alongside like Heavenly Delusion kind of vibe as well. It's interesting. I like it. It is very good. So yeah. And the final thing to say is that the opening song is fantastic. Now, I had no idea that it was going to be the conclusion, like in episode 13, but I watched it every single time. It was fantastic. The visuals aren't too good, but I can understand now why, if it was just waiting for the final, like, actual performance at the end. But yeah, the song is really, really good. I'm very happy with it. But yeah, that's production. Now, I have 4 miscellaneous notes. One is the Mad Max thing I already talked about. The second thing is that it's called Journal with Witch, And I don't quite know why. Like, I don't know what which means. I understand journal. Like, there's obviously, well, there's like two elements. One is that Asa is keeping a journal. And then the other element is that, like, Makio is a writer who is, like, writing stories, and that could be a journal. And at the end, we see, like, Makio's journal, who's published online or whatever. But I don't know what witch is. Like, is witch referring to Makio? Because she could kind of be, like, cold and distant and stuff. Like, I don't really know. But, or maybe it's just, like, a translation issue. Like, in Japan, it, like, maybe it's witch isn't, like, a literal interpretation of a word, or it's, like, another, I have no idea. But witch went beyond me. I have no idea why, or went over my head. The third final, or second last miscellaneous note is Asa's living space she designs, which is like inside Makio's cupboard, is like super cute. So I like that. That was really cool. And then the final thing is ending on a 10-year time skip, which could be like symbolic, or it's like ambiguous whether this actually happens 10 years later, or it's like, or if it's just a dream, because we see the scene earlier, like slightly teased. It's very cute. And it's like, oh, look at this, you know, like despite all the bad stuff that happened and Asa learning to become who she is, she's very happy 10 years later with her friend, who she's still friends with, Emily. I mean, they're going to go visit Makio. How cute. So yeah. This is a good show. I like this a lot. Yeah, I highly recommend watching it if you haven't. It's not going to be for everyone. Like I said, it is like, I can imagine a lot of people liking this, but it is also like I said, it's very quiet, mature. Yeah, I don't know. Keep that in mind. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe right now and see you next time.